are sexual minorities. After 4 years from enrollment, the dropout rate of sexual minorities is higher than the dropout rate of heterosexual students. And last but not least, ethnic minorities, which account for the 56% of the US population. But when we look at all students who are receiving bachelor's degree in a STEM-related field, only 22% are ethnic minorities. Now, we have actually seen in recent years an increase of the numbers of minorities that are enrolling in STEM discipline. This is true. However, problems persist in the career progression. So minorities do enroll in bachelor degrees related to STEM disciplines, but then along the way, something happened and they drop out. So let me show you this picture. Here you have the career progression of men grouped by ethnicity. So you have Asian, Black, Latino, Indigenous, or white. And you can see here that, first of all, white men tend to enroll in STEM bachelors in much greater numbers than Asian or Black, Latino, or Indigenous. But what is interesting to retain from this picture is that if you enroll in a STEM bachelor and you're Asian or you're a white man, well, then you're likely gonna make it till full professor. But if you enroll in a STEM bachelor and you're Black, Latino, or Indigenous, your chances for a career progression remain stagnant. What happens for women? Well, women actually enroll in STEM bachelors in much greater number than men. But then as we progress up the faculty ranks, the proportion of women dramatically decreases. What is also astonishing from this picture, let me remove the men, is that if you're a woman, it's gonna be difficult for you to make it to full professor, right? But if you're a woman and you're also Black, Latina, or Indigenous, well, then your chances for a career progression reduce even more. So you see here that discriminations intersect and reinforce each other. Now for the rest of the presentation, I'm gonna focus specifically on women and on gender discrimination, even though most of the findings I'm gonna show you stand true for all the other marginalized groups of individuals in science. Who cares? Why, as a society, should we care about the underrepresentation of marginalized individuals in science, especially women? Well, first of all, promoting equality is a matter of basic social justice, because having equal access, everyone should have equal access to resources and opportunities in science. Equality means development, innovation. Teams with a balanced number of men and women tend to perform better and are more productive. Well-being at work, yes, because when companies embrace diversity and equality, everyone is comfortable just like by acting as himself or herself. These companies are more likely to attract talents and retain those talents. And last but not least, from a pure human resources perspective, we spend time and effort educating women, and then once they're at the best of their expertise, they drop out, they fly away. Well, we have wasted part of the population we've educated. Now, if we really want to promote equality, we first need to understand what inequality is, because if we don't see what inequality is, if we can't understand where are inequalities in our everyday life and in the workplace, well, then we will never fight them. So the first part of my talk is going to be focused on all the obstacles that are pushing women away from science, actually a chronology of obstacles from childhood through their adult life. But solutions exist. We can create awareness, we can open our eyes on those inequalities, we can take action, we can do something about it, we can change the situation. So in the second part of my talk, I'm gonna share with you what I think are useful resources that can help you to make change in your control zone. So Let's move to this chronology of obstacles, and let's start with childhood. Well, gender stereotypes start to follow us from the very earliest days. By the age of 2, children can already distinguish the gender of adults. They learn that boys and girls play with different toys and that they wear different clothes. By the age of 6, children learn that adult men and women hold different types of jobs into society, so that a nurse is a woman and a plumber is a man. But children are forged by the environment. They are sponges. Parents, teacher, people around them, they all play a large role into their development. Children unconsciously apprehend stereotypes and sexism from the environment they're in. Children are not born with different attitudes. They learn that boys and girls act differently into society because of the society. And one of the most pronounced and the earliest actually difference in the experiences of boys and girls is in the type of play activities in which they engage. Research shows that girls tend to spend more time in structured activities, which are, for example, games where there's a clear set of rules and there's typically a parent leading the game, whereas boys tend to spend more time in low structured activities, for example, riding a bike, playing outdoors, getting messy, dirty. Well, high structure activities encourage feminine sex type behaviors such as compliance towards hierarchy and less assertiveness, whereas low structured activities encourage masculine sex type behaviors such as independence and assertiveness. So play activities influence children's development and determine their attitudes and skills that they will carry on in their adult life. Now let's move to another topic, which is actually the second biggest barriers to women's career success. This is the lack of role models, right after stereotyping. So in the development of professional identities, role models are essential because they are a source of learning, motivation, career guidance. They contribute to personal and professional growth in our everyday life. So especially in the workplace, we are attracted to individuals we perceive as similar to ourselves. So when women see other women in the workplace, they can project themselves, they have aspiration, and this boosts their sense of belonging. So the fact that we are lacking female role models, this does nothing but reinforce the stereotypes and the status quo. Gender bias is everywhere, and we can find it in open source platforms as well. GitHub is a platform where the programmers and software developers can share their codes, collaborate, and approve, validate someone else's code. So it turns out that codes written by women are approved and validated at higher rates respect to codes written by men. So in other terms, on GitHub, women are considered better coders, but this stands true only if the account identity does not explicitly reveal the gender. Stack Overflow. Stack Overflow is a forum, so some people ask questions, some other people answer those questions. Well, men and women are both equally active on this platform. However, men tend to engage for longer periods of time, whereas women disengage sooner because of an unhealthy community. Now, gender bias is so pervasive that we can find it in reference letters too. There's evidence of qualitative difference between reference letters written for female applicants and reference letters addressed to male applicants. Trix and Psenka have analyzed reference letters, and they found out that letters written about women were more likely to address on all the training she had been through, all the teaching hours she had completed, and the fact that she was applying for the job, which was a great idea, whereas the reference letters written for male applicants addressed the critical job requirements, such as all the research record, his skills and ability, and his career, his curriculum. Now, to make matters worse, reference letters for female applicants tell about her personal life more than her CV or her publications, whether reference letters written for male applicants address his CV, his publications, and there's almost never mention to his personal life. Another common forms of discrimination in the workplace and unfortunately in our everyday life is sexual and gender-based harassment, which can include sexual solicitation and advances, pornographic images in the workplace, demanding hugs, invading personal space, making unnecessary physical contact, unwanted touching, violence, sexual assault, inappropriate staring, sexual jokes, making sexual propositions, asking questions, talking about sexual activities, making an employee dress in a sexualized way. While sexual and gender-based harassment is against the law, sexual and gender-based harassment is rooted in the perverse idea that men have privilege over women. And this is a culture that is driving women out of science. Yes, because science, as any other male-dominated field, is no exception. There's evidence. How many times have you observed or heard about colleagues making inappropriate sexual remarks? Well, the answer to this question should be never. Can't remember a single one. Well, that's not what we see here, because both male and female respondents stated that they have witnessed at least 3 or more times weekly, daily, inappropriate sexual remarks. But these are remarks. What about unwanted contact? Well, sources of unwanted contact for male respondents are mostly from peers, whereas for female respondents, they come from their superiors. Having children is, of course, a joy, but there's also the double side of this situation, the parenthood penalty, because nearly 1/2 of new mothers and 1/4 of new fathers encounter difficulties reconciling caregiving with STEM careers. But of course, you can see here that the dropout of STEM for mother is higher than for father. So we should rather speak of a motherhood penalty, because there's also this cultural bias against mothers in the workplace. Being a good mother is culturally incompatible with being a good worker. And there are studies which show that female scientists with young children do not match the citation levels of their male counterparts, and they find it more difficult to access research funding. Now, mothers are consistently stereotyped as less competent and less committed, so they are at disadvantage in hiring and promotion. Actually, research shows that women without children have the highest chances of being recommended for hire, even more than fathers. But careful, because fathers are seen more positively than men without children. And, you know, because being a good father is compatible with the role of being a good worker, but mothers, women with children, are disadvantaged for hire and promotion. And this actually implies another big problem. This is actually a cascading effect, the gender pay gap. The gender pay gap is the difference between the earning of a woman respect to the earning of a man. I show you here the statistics from Europe in 2018. We have Romania with the smallest pay gap and Estonia with the largest pay gap. In any case, on average, women in Europe earn typically 15% less than men. Now here, I'm speaking of all the paid work women are doing, because there's also all the unpaid care work, which is, for example, family caring obligation, doing grocery shopping, preparing food, cleaning, washing, etc. So men tend to spend about 1 hour and 41 minutes per day on unpaid care work, whereas women tend to spend 4 hours and 19 minutes per day on unpaid care work. Now, we're all living this difficult and demanding time with COVID-19. There's evidence that COVID-19 is worse than gender inequality. And if you ever wondered if women are publishing less during the pandemic, well, spoiler alert, yes, they are. Now, we have arrived at the end of this overview of some of the obstacles women face throughout their career and their everyday life. For me, education is the answer. Educate yourself. Don't close your eyes in front of inequalities, because if you see inequalities, you know what inequalities are and you can fight them. Keep learning, educate the others. We can become advocate, ambassador, ally. Yes, because if you're a woman in science, but especially if you're not a woman in science, if you're not from a marginalized group, community in STEM, we need you. You can become an ally. We need everyone here. Change begins in your control zone, in your group of closest friends, family, colleagues. So now grab pen and paper, because I'm gonna share with you some useful resources that can help you to make change possible in your small control zone. Again, for me, education is the answer. Education is where everything begins, and that's also where sexism, stereotypes, and discrimination begins. Childhood is the best time for intervention, because we can break the mold, we can break the pattern as soon as possible. How we raise our children determines whether they become respectful citizens who treat each other with dignity. So gender equality starts soon. Gender equality starts at home. Gender equality starts at school. We can break the gender stereotypes in children's play activities, in children's literature and school books. I show you here some of the resources I've gathered for you, and I'm gonna share my slides at the end of the seminar with you, so no problems if you can't write down all the references. Here you have a lesson to help children understand that literature can be sexist and discriminatory. There are critical literacy practices though, because of course culture must be transmitted, but it must also be recontextualized and adapted to times. We can develop females' confidence and skills in leadership, communication, critical thinking through playing activities. There's also this very interesting research from the UN Women on 7 tips for raising feminist kids. Yes, because we need both girls and boys to play the game, to break the pattern. There's social justice literature for elementary school children. And I found this very nice comics about how boys develop sexism from interactions with adults. Be aware of your implicit bias, because we are all humans. We all have our biases and prejudices towards not only gender, but also religion, age, race, etc. So I invite you to click on this link to join the portal Project Implicit. This is cured by the Harvard University, and you can test your own implicit bias in all these categories. Careful though, because research has shown a kind of skepticism on implicit bias training, because, you know, it's good to know that we are all biased, but knowing about our own biases does not automatically result, unfortunately, in changes in behavior. There are several resources that are shedding light on microaggression, sexism, gender bias. These are forms of discrimination which are very often very subtle. So most of the times we kind of really don't know, we are unsure, was that really a sexist joke? So it's good that we have resources to open our eyes in front of these microaggressions, everyday microaggressions. Did this really happen? Is the comics about everyday sexism in academia, and it's actually based on real anecdotes in the academic context. Project Crocodile is available in French and Brazilian Portuguese, and is a comics about the everyday sexism, not necessarily in academia. And if you do know other resources like this one, which are famous in your countries, in your languages, please do share them in the chat box. This is the right moment to do so if you feel comfortable with sharing them with us. Sexual harassment is against the law. However, most of the time students don't know their rights. They don't know where and how to take legal action. So here you are a portal. You can follow this website, which helps students to stop sexual violence. Sexual harassment has also been addressed in other platforms. We have Non Una di Meno in Italy. There's the Spanish one, Ni Una Menos. For France, I could find a couple of very effective interactive portals. Dentafec, so this is actually a game. You can play either the witness or the victim of sexual misconduct at the university. And this other platform, again, you can be either the victim or the witness of sexual harassment in the street, and how you can react, what you can do. I could find the English version of this platform. Again, if you do know other resources like this one, please share them. In any case, sexual harassment is now a form of scientific misconduct under a new policy adopted by the American Geophysical Union. So you can ask your society to do the same. You can push for policy change in your department, in your organizations. Listen to women, believe women. Speak up when you see women harassed or marginalized. Refuse to work with sexist colleagues. Push university, enterprises, industries, societies to transparently update, actually create in the first place, and then update and enforce anti-sexism policies. Okay, so now let's switch completely register. I show you here the biography of Mary Tharp. Mary Tharp is an was an American geologist. During the 60s, she created the first scientific map of the Atlantic Ocean floor. Well, that's pretty awesome, right? Apparently, the biography of Mary Tharp was not even worth a page on Wikipedia until 3 years ago. Wikipedia is one of the primary sources of knowledge on the web. However, only 17% of Wikipedia biographies are about women. Well, we need to change that. We need to increase representation and visibility of women in STEM, so you can help fix Wikipedia's gender imbalance. Here you are resources on how to get started. Everyone can create an account on Wikipedia. Everyone can edit pages and create pages. And if you're too lazy, if you don't like writing all alone in your room, well, you can join a Wikipedia editathon, or you can organize one on your own within your community. These are a couple of projects you can join. Wiki Project Women, I'm a member of Wiki Project Women, and the page you just saw about Mary Tharp, I collaborated on that page with a couple of colleagues of mine. There's also Women in Red, called after the color that Wikipedia assigns to unexistent pages. Okay, Picture Scientist. Picture Scientist is a movie. I strongly suggest you to watch this movie about incredible women scientists and their stories, their experiences. This movie not only increases representation and visibility of women in STEM, but also shed light on microaggression, sexism, gender bias, all these forms of discrimination that those women had to face during their career. So you have the trailer, you can host the screening, you can bring the film to your campus or community. If we want more women, if we want more diversity in science, first of all, we should change the perception of what a scientist looks like. So whatever the activities you're involved in, whatever the initiative, make sure you're being inclusive, break the mold. So you're speaking about a scientist, you're using a visual, be diverse, be inclusive. Now, of course, using a picture is just one step towards promoting equality and diversity. You can do more, you can fund, you can support, you can create fellowships to support those marginalized individuals in STEM. I share with you here this fellowship for the future from 500 women scientists, which is targeted at Black women in STEM. You can also create or join a community, a support network online. There's plenty of communities on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. These resources have been gathered by my colleagues, Wendy Bohon and Beth Bartel. Thank you so much. So this is a list. I'm pretty sure there are plenty of other groups existing out there. So again, if you do know other community, other groups on social media, please share them with us today. Women find motivation through encouragement rather than challenge, as men tend to. And this is not because women are born different, but because of cultural and social aspects. So make sure you have a mentoring program within your organization, your department. whatever you do, you need to inspire the next generation. You can inspire the next generation by joining this kind of initiative. For example, if we support a woman in STEM, then she can change the world. This is just one example of the initiative or the activities that you can support. You can join this activity, you can propose your own activity to inspire the next generation of female professionals. Women's friendship is essential not only in our everyday life, but especially in the workplace and in academia. Women's friendship boosts the career development, strengthen this sense of belonging, build workplace resilience against all the forms of discriminations in the workplace. Women's friendship is a source of self-validation and is essential for all the information sharing and all the tacit knowledge that is so pervasive in the workplace and especially in academia. So make sure that you gather a strong network of women professionals. Now, if you are a professor right now in the audience, make sure that your reference letters are not biased. And if you're not a professor, if you're a student and you ask your professor to write you a reference letter, make sure he or she knows about these tips and tricks to avoid gender bias. So I share with you a couple of resources from the National Science Foundation and the Muse. Here you are a guideline. So first of all, focus on research and publication. Keep it professional. Don't mention private life. Leave all the personal life outside of it. On average, reference letters written for male applicants are typically longer than reference letters written for female applicants. So make sure you've written all you had to write in your reference letter. Avoid stereotypes. So here you are a list of all the adjectives you must avoid. And here are all a list of adjectives you should include in your reference letter. Be careful because you need to stick to the accomplishment, not all the effort, all the training. And again, you are writing a reference letter, you can double check it, you can improve it again and again. Say no to manuals, say no to conferences, seminars, and discussion panels where there are no women at all. And if you're thinking right now, well, you know, there are not so many women experts in my field, where that might not be true. Women experts exist, they are just less well known than their male counterpart. And this is because they aren't invited to the platforms that could give them the necessary public exposure. So this is a vicious circle. So you don't invite women experts, so they are less well known. You continue not inviting them, and so on. So break this pattern. You can be inclusive when you organize a scientific meeting. There's guidance. And if you're really struggling so much because you can't find a woman expert in your specific field of STEM, well, there are so many platforms out there where you can request a woman expert. And most importantly, right now, if you're a woman expert, make sure you are enlisted in those platforms. We can be transparent about the degree of diversity and inclusion, mostly diversity in this case, when we organize conferences, seminars, and discussion panels. So I invite you to check this conference diversity distribution calculator, so that if societies and organizations share numbers, everyone can do the same, and we can be transparent about our degree of diversity. Okay, now if we really want to help women, well, we need to change the way we think about women. You should have asked, is it comics about the culture we live in, actually? So all the mental and physical load of women in their everyday life in the workplace. Of course, this overload affects the psychology, the performance, and the productivity of women. The problem, however, with work-life balance is that it unfortunately is not just an individual level concern. So there's politics. Politics could do something with paid parental leave, so maternal and paternal paid leave. Organizations could do something by encouraging remote and flexible working hours, but can we do something in our small control zone? Well, yes, of course, we can create a support network for parents, especially for mothers in science. We could organize childcare and breastfeeding facilities at conferences. Okay, so right now with COVID-19, all conferences have been moved remotely, but this is the right time to think about all this because COVID-19 is not gonna last forever, hopefully. So this is the right time to think about the next future. I share with you this platform, Simon Journeys, where you can find information resources on how to support nursing moms in the workplace. If you're organizing a conference, you can design lactation spaces. You can bring an infant to a job interview. How to work that out, you can find it there. And there's there are podcasts for parents. Okay, so the situation of women can dramatically change depending on the country where you live. So what would your life look like if you were born in another country? I invite you to check the European Institute for Gender Equality. In the main page that there's this nice game where you can pretend to be a woman living in another country. So I share with you this example. I was curious. I'm pretending to be a Belgian woman right now. I have actually a higher chances of graduating from university respect to men in Belgium, but unfortunately, I'm likely gonna earn less than a man. And in my country, 60% of women have experienced sexual harassment. Okay, now, I'm not a Belgian woman. I'm originally from Italy. So what's my story? About 10 years ago, I was a bachelor student in physics at the University of Naples, and I had to attend 21 courses before having my degree. Among all my lecturers, only 3 were female lecturers. 10 years ago was also the time I first joined the Young Minds project of the European Physical Society. And that actually opened my eyes on my passion for science communication and public outreach. Then I enrolled in a master's degree in physics, still at the University of Naples. And at that moment, all my lecturers were white men. I won a scholarship so I could spend 1 semester abroad in Spain, Madrid, and there I had 1 female professor. I moved to France afterwards to pursue my PhD in seismology, and my supervisors were both white men. At that time, I was initiated to the issues of inequalities, diversity, inclusion in science, in the workplace. I joined the Égalité Association, which was founded by PhD students and postdocs in the institute where I was doing my PhD. And during my PhD, I won a scholarship to do some research at Los Alamos National Lab in New Mexico in the US. And my collaborators and co-authors were and still are white men. Today I am a member of 500 Women Scientists, an association that promotes diversity, equality, and inclusion in science. I serve as a science communication officer in a seismological institute. This is my team. I'm in a team where I'm surrounded by white scientists, seismologists, and data scientists. We are only 2 women. The other woman is a sociologist. So yes, I have always felt so lonely in my being a woman in science, a woman scientist, and I lacked a lot female role models throughout actually my entire adult life, during my early years at the university and my career. Water can fix the leaks in the pipeline. So we need everyone here to do his part. If we continue to just let people enroll in STEM degrees, the situation is not going to change, because the problems persist along the way. And if you have privilege right now, if you're in a position of privilege, you must act, you must do something, acknowledge your privilege. Those who have succeeded in science and in many other fields have not done so entirely due to their own innate brilliance. Statistically speaking, just being male will automatically give you a leg up. If you also happen to be white, straight, and able, your chances at success are even higher. So today I show you that science has a diversity problem. Science is biased. Science is discriminatory because science is made by humans. We have come across several obstacles that women face in their career. This list was, of course, not exhaustive. There are many other obstacles that are pushing women away from science, and there's no magic solution, but plenty of options exist to make change happen in our small control zone. I share you here further resources, so I hope you are gonna look at the slides afterwards. Here you are other statistics in Europe, UK, France, other reports. Further readings about gender inequalities and gender equality. This presentation today would not have been possible without the knowledge and the support that I received from the Equality group, which initiated me to these topics, and the 500 women scientists. Thanks to my friends and colleagues who supported me and who actually provided us today with some of the resources that I gathered together in this presentation. If you'd like to receive the slide, or if you'd like to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion in science or in our everyday life, I'd be happy to discuss with you. You can email me at this address. And I intend today's presentation as an overview of what's the state of the art situation in science, and actually a pool. I hope I could give you a pool of resources that you can use. So now I'd like to hear from you, hear your experiences, your opinions on the topics we've just discussed, or also on other topics that we didn't have the time to address today. So I open the door to questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Marina. I would like to say really a very big thank you, because it has been, okay, thank you. Because it has been incredible. It has been a, sorry, an amazing talk. So thank you very much for sharing all this information, all the resources, and for the work that you have made, like gathering all the resources up and sharing them with us. So now I think we can start the question and answers moment. And right now we have already a lot of questions that have been piling up here in the group chat. Yeah, so yes. I will start with some questions. Then I also have some questions for you, and then anyone who wants to do some question can unmute themselves and ask them to Marina directly. So, but okay, I'm still, okay, it was still just a voice. Okay, now I have a face. Okay, so the first question is related, it's from Manuela Vecchi, and is related to your slide on the gender pay gap. And the question is if the gender pay gap applies to private or public sector.
That's a good question. I think it gathers both of them, but we can double check on the reference, of course. It's in general, both of them, private and public sector.
Okay. Then I have another question from Shruti Giri, which is basically, the question is, how much does the childhood intervention that we could develop or think, I mean, how much does the childhood intervention strategies that you presented help if other people that the children interact with are with more rigid rules?
Thank you, Shruti, because that's a tricky point. Actually, thank you for raising this question. We can't change the way others act, right? We have control on our zone.
Okay, so second,
that's an interesting point. Of course, I mean, if we spend so much effort on educating our children, and then these children, of course, they play with other children, they go to school, they live in this world, and they are still influenced by the world. So from parents, intervention is limited. Of course, it's limited, but it's something. I would say, well, share this knowledge with the other parents, right? So create awareness among the other parents. But that's a tricky point. Exactly.
Okay, so now I have a, does anyone have a question?
And I just step in so people have time to think about other questions. Thank you so much, because I'm reading all this interesting, you've shared a lot of interesting resources. I think this is going to be so helpful for me first, because, you know, I still want to keep learning. I'm not done with educating myself on this topic. So thank you so much. I can add these references and these resources to the presentation before sharing it with you afterwards. Thank you.
Okay, so now I have a question for you. Actually, I have two. So the first question is related to the slide where you were mentioning the social examples or stereotypes about women and misperception. Like, for example, GitHub or Stack Overflow. My question for you is, do you think that this happens also on an education level? I mean, I'm thinking about university. Do you think that usually this can happen also, that maybe female students might be regarded by male professors are underskilled?
Well, yeah, I mean, of course, thank you for asking me this question. I think that's basically what the problem is. So there's a bias, there's a prejudice, right? And we can see the studies carried out on open sources reveal this bias. So open sources are made by people who are there. So the same people are in our everyday life. The same people are your professors and your colleagues at the university. So there's no reason why university should be different from the pool of people used in the analysis for GitHub, for example. So yes, and you can clearly see that there's this bias because, you know, women are not good coders, because women are not good with numbers, blah, 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 etc. So definitely, I'm pretty sure there's the same bias when we are at university and there's the class and the course of programming, coding, whatever. And yes, professor could have the same bias towards female students. Yes.
Okay, so if anyone has another question, please go on. Otherwise, I have another one to do.
May I ask a question? So, ciao Marina. Very nice talk, and I'm very happy to have been here with you all. So, regarding the previous question that Mattia asked, is there any research, any study on how this bias affects the results of female students? I mean, how does it look like? How do you feel when you are like basically every day told that you're not enough, that you're less than your male colleague?
Thank you so much, Roberta, because this is another so much interesting point. Yes, there's evidence that all the unspoken prejudices, biases affect the performance of women at school, right? At a different level in school, not only university level, also high school, for example. And if you're really wondering, also for the driving license. So I can share with you this link. There are studies that show that women feel so much pressure because, you know, there's this bias that women are very bad drivers, that when they go to pass the driving license exam, they just fail, and they fail because they have so much pressure on themselves. And sorry, because I'm traveling around about driving license, and we are speaking about STEM, but it's so pervasive. This bias is so pervasive in so many categories of our lives. So yes, and about the school, so high school, university. Yes, there's, but this is a well-known topic. So I can ask. I see there are school teachers in the audience. This is a Pygmalion effect. So when you emphasize a student, the student feel like has feedback. So the student, it's like the same thing. If you receive good feedback from someone else, well, you're more motivated. You are encouraged to do better, to outperform yourself, right? But if from the professor you don't receive good feedback, and if you're ignored, if you're transparent, and you don't feel like you can improve, you don't feel like you can outperform yourself.
Okay.
Sorry, Mattia, I have another one then.
Yes.
And then I'll give you the floor. And still sticking to this problem of biases and things that might affect your performance. You mentioned that one of the problems here is that female lack role models. So in this case, is it likely that a woman chooses as a role model a man because you don't have anything else, so you just follow a man? Do you think that there is the possibility that choosing a male role model enforces the bias and the divisiveness, let's say, of the roles? So that, I mean, in simpler words, do you think that this is the reason why women regarded as successful are women who actually show the so-called masculine traits of personality?
Okay, well, here we are mixing several topics. So there's the lack of role models and the fact that we, one way or another, well, as a student, I didn't really have female role models, so my role models were men, which is great, which is okay. It can work out actually. So it's not that the problem is that sometimes you feel like more comfortable sharing certain things, not sharing personal life, but also sharing some obstacles and difficulties and way to overcome situations with someone that has lived the same obstacles that you've lived. You're currently living. Well, about the fact that we look at strong personality as much more related to the masculine sex type behaviors, that's also something that has been currently studied, and this is something that is very evident in politics. So there's a recent study about how politics, for example, Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand can be compared to other leadership examples, Angela Merkel or, well, Trump, etc., especially during COVID-19, how they handle the situation during COVID-19, whether a masculine type behaviors can be more effective, or whether a masculine sex type behavior can be more effective than a feminine sex type behavior. I have no clear answer on these topics, but they are all matters of research, of course, definitely.
Okay. So I have another question from the chat to you, Marina, and is from Yana Muru. And the question is, do you feel that Europe is better than other parts of the world in addressing bias or gender inequalities? I mean, having experience working in the US, science is through international. Is your outlook positive on things progressing? And what is the impact of politics, like, for example, populist governments rising in Poland, Hungary, Brazil, on such changes in attitude?
Well, okay. How many times do you have, guys? Because this is gonna take forever. This is gonna last forever. What I can say is that I definitely saw a difference between my experience, well, my first and longest experience in Italy, because I've grown up in Italy. In Spain, I had a very short experience, but there is a difference between Spain, Italy, and France. For example, when I arrived in France, everything looked to me like, oh, whoa, we had a woman leading the group, the department where I was doing my PhD. And for me, it was like, oh, wow, there are women here. I think in France, I could not, this is, by no means, I wanna say that France is doing better. I just think that the impression is that equality is a little bit more perceived here in France rather than in Spain or in Italy. In the US, I cannot say. I know that in the US they have plenty of policies. For example, for the job applications, you always read, we encourage every applicant to apply from a marginalized group, etc., ethnic minorities, etc. I can't tell more than this. I know that there they live in much greater, it's more, it's a sensitive topic there. I would say in Europe is less, probably less sensitive, is a less sensitive topic, I would say. But it's not better. I mean, if you want me to say that Europe is doing better, scientific societies are doing something. So I can't tell about the population, of course. I don't know all the population. I don't know all the people in these countries and in these continents. I know scientific societies. I know the American Geophysical Union. I know the European Geophysics Union. They are doing something. But these are scientific societies, so it's also their objective to be, you know, cutting edge also on this kind of topics.
Okay, so
may I intervene? I'm Petra Rudolph, President of the European Physical Society. I would like to comment what you just said. So in Europe, what we see is that the percentage of women in academia is highest, where the salary of academics are lowest. So it seems that the freedom for women to mount in the academic career scales inversely with the prestige and the salaries of academia. And this goes with another finding, that is a discipline which has become much more female over the last years, which is medicine, has seen a decrease in salaries. So it's really terrible, but you should not be discouraged because things are changing. They are, of course, changing much slower than we would like. But if you take my own personal experience, when I arrived in the Netherlands 17 years ago, I was the third female professor in physics in the whole country. And now only at my university, there are 8 female physics professors in physics. So things are changing. And that's what we have to look out for, and that is what we have to push. Okay.
Thank you so much, Petra. Thank you for sharing your experience. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, so does anyone have another question? Otherwise, I still have one that I wanted to ask you, but let's wait for others. Okay, so my question is the following. So basically, when you were talking about sexual harassment, there was something that actually a bit like shocked me, that in the slide where you were showing the graphs about the perception of the phenomenon, apparently male respondents to the interview were not perceiving the harassment that their female colleagues or co-students were undergoing. So why do you think that happens? Because I mean, it is true that many people don't see or don't realize that something that happened to their colleagues is sexual harassment, and many people don't even realize that they are doing something like that.
Yeah, thank you, Mattia, for this question, because this opens another very interesting point. I think what you're saying is true. Like I have the impression after what I've read that male respondents kind of don't see microaggressions. Okay. Probably because they are not the first ones who receive them, right? So if you're not touched by the issue, by the problem, you don't really see it. Second cause, I would say, is that there's also this camaraderism. There's also this old boys group. So this kind of behavior is approved, let's say. Oh no, you know, that was just a joke. It was a sexist joke. So maybe male respondents tend to look the other way, I would say. So if part of them don't even recognize that the problem exists, the other part kind of recognize, but they prefer to look the other way.
Okay. Okay. Yes. Thank you very much for your answer, Marina.
Thanks for your question.
So,
sorry,
any more questions? Yes.
This is Richard. I would like to comment on what Marina just has said. So, Marina, what you have basically described just now seems to me like a problem of awareness by some people. Would you agree? And if you would agree, would you have any recommendations on how this awareness can be created among privileged persons, let's say?
Yeah, thank you, Richard. It is a problem of awareness, and I'm pretty sure maybe I've been so hard in my answer to Mattia. I've been so probably too hard on saying that, yeah, men respondents ignore the problem. I do believe, though, that some men recognize that there are these issues. I do also believe that some other men, they do it in good faith. Maybe they don't even realize that the jokes they are making is a sexist joke. So yes, it's a problem of awareness. Maybe you just want to have fun. You just want to make fun. You're in the workplace and you're just making a joke, right? But creating awareness, I mean, you create awareness just by looking at all the examples that we can share. So I shared a couple of comics, but comics is a great way to understand that, oh, wait, probably that day, that morning when I did that sexist jokes, that was not perceived so positively by the female audience. Maybe that can, you know, shed light in your mind on these forms of aggression. We can actually we have to call them like that, forms of discrimination, forms of microaggressions, right? So about the awareness, I would say there are movies, there are talks, there are TED Talks about it. If you like watching TED, I love watching TED Talks. There are comics about it right now. Right now you can educate yourself. You can't really ignore, you can't look the other way, can't anymore.
Thank you very much. I would completely, well, I completely agree. But I mean, raising awareness for myself is easy. Do you have any, because as you said, there's plenty of material that can be used for teaching. Other question would be maybe how you can create awareness among other people without offending them, because no one wants to be perceived as a bad person or as a discriminating person, right?
Right. Again, this is difficult because you're touching, you're gonna attack the personality of people. So if you are in front of someone who is humble and is open to change his mind, her mind, because maybe there are also women who are making sexist jokes and they don't even recognize it. If you're in front of someone who is humble, you can try it. But if the person in front of you doesn't even get it, well, why force it, right? Just I wouldn't even attempt to change that person.
All right, thank you.
Thanks to you.
Perfect. Okay. Are there any more questions? Okay, so if there are not any more questions, oh, yes, see. Yes, please go on. Who was talking?
Better Allies gives excellent tips on how to react as bystander. Okay, Better Allies must be another resource. Thank you, Petra. You can create an ally in your group. Oh, probably this was after my answer to Richard. If I can interpret what Bruna just wrote. Yeah, if you don't want to address the topic to someone who is known to be completely unhumble, you can create an ally in your group and try to discuss the topic together, of course, because having allies strengthen your position, of course, definitely. So maybe you feel more brave to address the topic.
Okay. So, okay, any follow-up on that question? I'll wait the time for people to type if they want to type or to unmute themselves. So, okay, then I have just one thing. Maybe if anyone who wants could like start his or her video so that we can take a picture, in this case, a screenshot of the Zoom meeting with so many interested people for the amazing talk that you have given, Marina, and really I want to thank you another time for that. So if anyone can start their video, I will. Okay, perfect. Just a second, and then I will. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Smile. Okay, 1 second, just another one. In 1 second, no, because there are so many that I actually have to take a screenshot of every one of the pages of the Zoom meeting, and there are 2. So it was a bit tricky. So okay,
well,
that's it.
Thank you so much. Actually, I didn't want to talk during the picture, you know, I wanted to look pretty in the picture. So stereotype. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for joining. You're so many here today, late afternoon. So thank you again. Thank you,
Yes.
Marina, for being the
Just
best
one thing.
ever. Yes,
No, that's not true. That's not true. Thank you a lot for your amazing talk. It's been incredible. I mean, for me, it's been extremely amazing. Oh, we have another question.
Okay.
Could you share your email?
Sure. Here you
if you can, Raj.
Yes. Yes, that should be the right one. Yes. Yes, you can, or either you write me and you can ask me the slides, or Mattia, I don't know if I can share the slides with you, and you have the mailing list, right?
Yes, exactly. If you share them with me, I can reach all the mailing list of those who will apply for the seminar. So awesome. Yes.
So yeah, we are gonna do that way. Yeah, perfect. So yeah.
Okay.
Slides.
So Marina, thank you very much. Really, another time from my side and on behalf of the Action Committee, and thank you very much. So it was nice, and good afternoon to everyone.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Ciao, Mattia. Ciao, grazie.
Bye.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Thank you. Good job, Marina.
Thank you.
Ciao Marina, complimenti.
Ciao, grazie. Ciao, ciao, buona serata. I stay here so that I can copy paste all the questions and resources in the Zoom chat before everyone leaves. Oh my God. How do you copy this?
Marina, I was actually already copying all the links.
Oh, great. Awesome. Great.
I have everything here in a quite ugly Word file, but we'll show it afterwards.
That will be fantastic. Thank you, Richard.
Sure.
Okay. So Richard, I think that you have the, okay, just